SOFEX, they're going to have the keynote speeches. As you can see, there's pretty much every general in the world here. It's crazy.
It's my great pleasure to welcome all of you to Jordan Dr. SOFEX. With the 349 exhibitors and more than 300 delegates from around 85 countries. Special operation capabilities are vital to the battle against global terrorism. With your leadership, insights, and efforts, victory will be ours.
Victory is mine. You hear these words? That literally means victory is mine.
Estimated anywhere between $350 billion to $500 billion a year.
Victory will be
one of the largest industries in the world, and these are all the guys.
Those are the words of a mindset.
The generals who come here to buy weapon systems. Where are you guys from? Jordan? The hometown boys. Where are you guys from?
Hometown.
Togo? Nice to meet you. Tanzania. Very good guys. Lebanon.
We're buying weapon systems. We're investing in warfare. You understand?
When I was a kid, they used to talk about the military-industrial complex. Well, this is it, right here.
To
business of war. All the generals coming with billions upon billions of dollars of taxpayer money to buy weapons to fuck shit up.
You understand? To buy weapons to fuck shit up. The name, whatever you do, is like. But it is true. Very true. Only republics have their own sovereignty.
Here comes some of the special.
Remember these words. The Republic of Yemen.
Jordan has
the
a profound, almost
Congo.
Pathological fixation.
The Republic of China.
Well, one, because it borders with Syria, Israel, Saudi Arabia, and Iraq. And two, because Special Ops is code
and the
for taking
Republic
down terrorists,
which it
insurgents,
stands.
or anyone else that the
One
government
nation
deems
under God.
desirable.
For the Republic.
And since 9/11, if you join the fight against global terrorism, it also means
and the
that Uncle Sam will cut you a nice big check for weapons, especially if they're American made.
American made.
So we just saw the show of force. They took over the building. They dropped some people in. There was a hostage crisis. They did it all. They killed everybody. And now SOFEX is going to begin. And if you didn't know that the military-industrial complex was a party, you'd be wrong.
It's literally
go in with all the generals. See what everybody's buying. It's like a parody. I kind of feel like Austin Powers is going to jump out at some point because it's like a million Dr. Evil is getting their special laser weapon system. It's like kids at a game.
Laser weapons. A million Dr. Evil. You don't understand who we are.
For your eyes. I think that's the wrong bond.
That BOA come from your ass.
And it's not just arms you can buy. If you make a big enough purchase, they'll train you on just how to use them too. To this end, they've created a state-of-the-art military training facility where you can learn how to raid an airplane, or assault a gas station, or not freak out while all around you.
These are actually purposeful.
And all of this is brought to you courtesy of General Dynamics.
Which I shoot tonight. I take your collarbone off
between the U.S.
and allow your collarbone to explode.
It's about a $200 million facility as it stands right now.
That's
all
what this is.
constructed in the
Your
effort
hand
to
is in this
basically
degree.
have a one-stop
Your
shop
collarbone
for
is
special
in
operations
this
type
degree.
training. You can come and you can work on your urban skills. You can work on
The
your
buckshot
aircraft
will
assault
all
skills,
explode and
and
implode
just the whole
in
gamut.
magnificent
trained on
Well, a number of countries. I won't say exactly which ones. What we have here is the Airbus 300. What it allows us to do is various types of training as it relates to special operations, whether it's a hostage situation inside of an aircraft or we want to replicate some sky marshal training. As in the aircraft here, we can simulate certain battlefield effects. We can initiate smells and sounds of the battlefield that may go along with a certain kind of scenario. What we can do is we can pull out the mannequins and actually put,
Don't shoot the baby.
that's right. Mindset's a big factor for each operator.
Yeah.
And the more you can expose them to in a controlled environment like this, the better operator he's going to be, the more surgical he's going to be.
Right. I understand why, because the baby sound just freaked me out.
Yeah. This is the 100-meter range, and the 100-meter range has a system built by Saab, basically a pop-up target system.
Saab, the car manufacturer?
Yeah, I believe it's the same guy, Saab Systems.
Right. I never see any press on this stuff ever. That's why I think I'm sort of a maverick. Although not a maverick like John McCain.
It's such a good story.
All right.
You know, anything that we can do to help, you know, the soldiers that we put out there. And just think of it, a site like this tries to replicate any type of situation that they're in.
Now Jennifer does PR for these General Dynamics war villages, which must be the weirdest job for a soccer mom ever created. So they bring people from SOFAX here. Why?
Oh, to see it. Don't seem to believe it.
So they like it. They see the
Hire me,
they get
nigga.
afraid by the baby.
Fuck.
And then
Pay for
they come to you and say, I want it. Now what? What's next?
Great, we go and we, you know, talk to them and say they either want it in their country
Yeah.
or they can come here and train.
Right. Going in. Live hostage situation. You got them all before I even got in. I wonder if what the Jordanians think about these guys being the bad guy.
We're approaching the urban area. The urban area consists of about 52 structures. The structures range from banks to small, large villas. We have an embassy complex over on the right, gas station, and just all kinds of other structures. There's a machine gun, similar machine gun in that window. We have wave cannons on all the rooftops.
Are wave cannons a real thing?
They're
Is that a wave cannon?
this way.
Thing.
They're banks to small, large villas. We have an embassy complex over on the right, gas station, and just all kinds of other structures. There's a machine gun, similar machine gun in that window. We have wave cannons on all the rooftops.
Are wave cannons a real thing?
They're
Is that a wave cannon?
this way. Too small. We're approaching there.
Going in. Live hostage situation. You got them all before I even got in. I wonder if what the Jordanians think about these guys being the bad guy.
We're approaching the urban area. The urban area consists of about 52 structures. The structures range from banks to small, large villas. We have an embassy complex over on the right, gas station, and just all kinds of other structures. There's a machine gun, similar machine gun in that window. We have wave cannons on all the rooftops.
Are wave cannons a real thing?
They're
Is that a wave cannon?
this way.
They're after us.
I've been told that in the building they initiated some kind of an odor, as well as probably some smoke and so on.
I smell something, I don't know what it is. This is like the worst thing I could possibly think of right now, being hungover and make it smell like rotting flesh.
Burnt hair, holding machinery, dead body.
We have an apple
Is there ever a worry that sort of baddies would come and use the area as train? Do you know you have Israel, Lebanon, Egypt, Syria, all his neighbors, and you just wonder, who gets to come train.
Well, Jordan's in a tough neighborhood. There's no
Yeah.
doubt about it.
Jordan is in a tough neighborhood. In fact, both Egypt and Syria are currently trying to put down popular rebellions, and Iraq is basically in a full-on special ops civil war. Where are they getting all these weapons? SOFIX. How hard is it to come and buy arms on the open market?
For states, it's easy. For terrorist organization or criminal organization, it's more difficult. But for example, in America, the main supplier of drugs cartel in Mexico are the free market in America.
Sure.
So,
And we noticed that they sell kits. For example, you can buy a regular helicopter, but you can buy a kit to upgrade it to add in a missile system or a Gatling gun system quite easily.
yes, of course. It's what we call now dual technology.
Mhm.
For example, Iran bought this kind of plane
Right.
officially for commercial operation. But Russians say we don't sell weapons to Iran. We sell antonov. It's a commercial plane.
So I can buy a helicopter from one country, and I can buy a weapon system from another country, and then have an attack helicopter.
Yes. For example, this kind of helicopter, the North Korea have some of these kinds.
So the North Koreans bought some of these.
Yes. So it's pretty scary.
Can I have a keychain? Thank you. Where are you guys from? Kazakhstan. Czech Republic. Is that made in Azerbaijan?
Yes.
So Azerbaijan makes the biggest, longest rifle I've ever seen. Where are you guys from? Germany. Turkey is here. China's here. Jordan is here. The Russians are here. All selling weapon systems to whoever wants to buy them. You want jets, you want rockets, helicopter grenades, Robocop killer system.
You have 20 seconds to comply.
You got it. That's an automatic grenade launcher. It's my favorite weapon in the entire Marine Corps arsenal. No one's stopping him and saying, hey, you shouldn't be actually playing with the grenade launcher. Now, fucking around with these dudes and their guns is fun, but after a while you start to freak out because you realize that they're selling weapons the same way that they sell next to your car model.
The world's most demanding shooters demand 6. This is the world's most revolutionary pistol. We have the resources and the energy to solve any small arms problem.
Javelin would be one of the most innovative weapon systems to create. It was hugely successful in Iraq and Afghanistan, not just in the United States forces, right? International. And when he says successful, what he really means is that it's great at destroying stuff. And we weren't the only ones to notice. Like the Marine we ran into, who had just finished his second tour in Iraq.
Yeah, it's weird, man. It's like everybody's like real cordial with each other. Like at the end of the day, we're like buying weapons to destroy each other.
That's it.
I don't want to sound too like liberal or anything.
No.
It's really not glamorous.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like they don't discriminate. They'll
Yeah.
sell to anybody who has fucking money.
And the biggest sellers by far are the American companies. In fact, 16 of the 20 largest arms manufacturers are based in the United States. And being the biggest store in the mall means selling a lot of weapons to a lot of people. What's crazy about this is that America gives a lot of these countries foreign aid so that they can come here and buy weapon systems from their company. It's kind of like parents giving their kids a credit card and saying, go to the mall that I own and just buy whatever you want. So the last time you were in the Middle East, you were in Iraq as a Marine. Does it spin you out to see like Northrop Grumman, General Dynamics, like all these American companies making tons of money off of war?
You know, what's the trip is you see Norinco right here,
Right.
next to an American arms display. They used to launch 9-foot Norinco rocket dumps.
Really? The insurgents would buy Norinco rockets and then use them against you, and they're right next to the American military company. Interesting. So we went over to the Norinco booth to see if they could explain how their weapons ended up in the hands of Iraqi insurgents. All right. Hey, Al.
Hey,
Hi, how are you?
yes, where are you from?
From America, Vice. BBS, News.
Oh, news.
News.
Sorry.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Ni hao. I must have bad DO. They're all walking away very rapidly. Ni hao. Everyone just left. Well, we couldn't get an answer from the Chinese. Sitting right there on display in the next booth over were shells that were exactly the same as the ones Iraqi insurgents used to make roadside bombs or IEDs.
They take the tips off of these, and you can see it's pretty hollow in there. And they'll pack this whole thing full of C4, and just it creates some hellacious shrapnel.
And here you can just buy it like you would a chocolate bar.
Exactly.
We're just outside of Amman, Jordan, at the King Abdullah Special Operations Training Center for the Ultimate Warrior competition. There's some Marines here, there's some Tanzanians here, there's some people from Saudi Arabia, and they're the hometown heroes, the Jordanians. They're part of the special branches. It's basically bragging rights for who's the biggest badasses in the world.
Wade Candy.
And so these are the best of the best counter-terrorist special ops groups.
Yes.
And so if they win, they're like, we're the biggest badasses.
I guess it does give you a little bit of bragging rights. So
That's good.
as you can see, it's designed to kind of hit on as many of the skill sets that these guys possess and challenge them in all of those stamina, endurance, shooting skills.
Do they do Indian leg wrestling?
I mean, like wrestling, though, maybe.
Because I could compete on
What
that.
about potato sack racing?
I could compete on those too. Now I have to admit, watching these special ops guys strut their stuff was pretty impressive. When you start thinking about the countries that some of these guys come from, you can't help but wonder the circumstances in which these urban assault skills are going to be put to use. And if the recent uprisings in the Arab world are any indication, the answer is simple: at home. How you guys doing? Good? You gonna win? Yeah? How you boys doing? Are you gonna win?
If they don't win, then I'll put my boot in their ass. I'm happy.
And what do you think about competitions like this?
Friendly competition is always a great thing. It lets you know what you need to work on. And shoot you out, you meet new people because connections around the world right now is a big deal. So
Yeah.
getting to know guys you might see down the road in Afghanistan and recognize faces.
Sure.
Definitely goes a long way.
And recognizing faces is important. In fact, facial recognition technology is the latest feature being built into many unarmed aerial vehicles, which are also known as drones. You know, when you were a kid, you used to have those little model airplanes, and it'd be like, you know, somebody's dad would be a real nerd and have a model airplane. Now, like, it's all model airplane style drones that can take pictures or drop bombs. Sad thing is that countries who actually buy this stuff rarely end up using it against foreign militaries. More often than not, they're turning it against their own citizens. And thanks to the number of governments who are afraid of their own people, business is booming.
We've just made an assessment of the global security market spending.
Right.
And our assessment this year is we think spending on security is between 180 and 190 billion dollars. We now see that doubling to 400 billion dollars over the next 4 years.
$400 billion just on
Everything from border security, homeland security, anti-immigration, anti-drug, protection of oil fields, and everything else.
So even in a recession.
So you can see 2 to 3 times more on security spending than it's going to be on defense export spending.
Wow.
Hence the importance of things.
So we just left SOFAX. We're pretty spun out. A lot of generals, a lot of weapon systems, missiles, tanks, planes, helicopters, and it's kind of a bummer. And as we left SOFAX, the magnitude of what we just saw hit us. If the arms markets are doubling every year in sales, it means that the armies are actually using and expending their weapons, which means, quite simply, that they're killing people.
Come on, fire!
Roger. Keep shooting. Whenever Pakistan comes in the news these days, the context is either floods, the Taliban, political assassinations, or violence at the hands of suicide bombers. We wanted to see it for ourselves, so we got on a plane and flew to Peshawar. It's a city right on the border of the tribal areas, a lawless region sandwiched between Afghanistan and Pakistan. Back in 2006, we came to the region to film a story about the largest illegal gun market in the world in a town called Dara Adam Khail. Our host was a guy named Naim Afridi, who was the director of protocol for the provincial government.
If everybody come to my side, I will definitely kill him.
On the recent trip, we called Naim again, and as soon as we met, he explained that things in Pakistan, in Peshawar specifically, had spiraled downward into a cesspool of militancy and fundamentalism.
Bomb blasts, terrorism, kidnapping, shooting, this take place here from last so many years.
I was here 4 years ago, and it was totally different.
Yeah.
And now everyone's just, scared.
But Peshawar is a peaceful place. But this bloody terrorism destroy the peace of this land.
We drove to the Pearl Continental Hotel, the same place we stayed on our last visit. So that's the driveway coming into the hotel. There was a car that drove in very fast, and there was a bomb blast here 6 months ago. And 4 years ago, those little walls didn't exist. There were about, 25 to 30 armed guards inside this compound. I feel like I'm the only person staying here. After 9/11, the U.S. bombed the hell out of Afghanistan and toppled the Taliban. The remaining soldiers scrambled over the forest border into the tribal areas of Pakistan, and that's where they started to plot their comeback. What a lot of people don't realize is that because of all of this, the second Taliban movement was formed, or the Pakistani Taliban, or Tehreek-e Taliban. There's two Taliban, one in Afghanistan, one in Pakistan, and once here has created a lot of fear in Peshawar. This is the office for the news. It's one of the largest newspapers in the country. We're here to meet Rahimullah Yousafzai. He is the most respected journalist in the country. He was the first guy to ever go visit with the Taliban and interview them. And he was also the last guy to ever get an interview with Osama bin Laden, who he's interviewed twice. And he's regarded as the foremost authority on the Taliban. And he's made some time to meet with us. Could you explain the difference between the Afghani Taliban and Pakistan Taliban?
The Pakistani Taliban were inspired by the Afghan Taliban. They have the same worldview. The Pakistani Taliban looked to the Afghan Taliban for leadership. The Pakistani Taliban were happy to fight in Afghanistan until the Pakistan government and army, under US pressure, started action against them in Pakistan. Then they started looking inwards. They began fighting the Pakistani state. So I think their main battle now is in Pakistan.
So, buddy, this road looks familiar. We've been on it before when we went to the gun markets.
Yeah.
And so, why can't we go into the tribal areas?
This is already a risk because this area is totally dominated with Taliban fighters. So many bomb blasts took place in these areas.
We're driving up to a site where there was a bomb blast. The Taliban tried to kill the police. It's a checkpoint. I'm standing here on the border of the tribal areas, and just 4 kilometers that way is the gun market where we filmed 4 years ago. That area has been taken over by the Taliban. And these guys here, they battle with the Taliban on a regular basis.
हम जागे होते हैं फायरिंग वगैरह भी करते रहते हैं तो हमारे ऊपर फिर ये है कि ज्यादा वो गरीब नहीं आ सकता हम किसको काबू कर दें यहाँ से तालिबान
अच्छा इसका नाम क्या है
Gosh, 50 child.
दुशाका
Stand it.
हमने दर में ये नहीं बनाया
Die.
धर्म में इसकी नकद बनती है
So they're saying in Dara they do knock off this gun, but this one has come from abroad.
Lock it.
Lock it.
Oh, lock it.
Okay, it's definitely locked. I won't shoot the farmer on the tractor. Are ye kaaka bana hua hai?
ये रूस
That's a Russian.
पहला Russian. उसके बाद जो ना पाकिस्तान में
Pakistan.
That's
too.
1986.
हाँ
So this was built in 1986.
1986.
This is a very important piece of history
Russia.
here because this is where all the problems stem from.
Wow.
When the Soviets invaded Afghanistan, they came in and there was a lot of leftover Russian artillery. And since that time, this Kalashnikov culture has been pervading Pakistan.
Right. Now I understand. They invaded you. And you took their guns after they left. You took half of their culture. Of the Aryan Brotherhood. That iron. Took their guns. Their stockpiles. Soviet weapons. You don't even need to go there.
Overall, it's pretty heavy vibes around here. They're scanning, suspicious-looking people and trying to find guns, explosives, and whatnot. There was a single bomb blast that blew up the market over there, the mosque behind me, the armored vehicle over there, and the police station.
Going up whole mosque.
50 people died.
Mosque.
One of the
Let
guys
that
who
shit
died
happen
was
in my
wearing this
country. I
bulletproof
swear to
jacket,
fucking God.
and the soldier who died, they buried him right here. Yikes. That freaks me out. All kinds of shit falling out of it. आपका राय क्या है तालिबान के बारे में?
तो वो हमारे वो हमारे दुश्मन समझते हैं हमें काफिर समझते हैं कि ये लोग काफिर हैं
Infidel. Enemies and infidel. Fight against it. The name.
So the Taliban target the police here because they're saying that they're infidels, they're anti-Muslim, they're friends of the West, they're collaborators, and that's why they become targets. When in reality, they're practicing Muslims. It's ridiculous. So, जो terrorists थे, वो की उम्र क्या था? और कितने थे?
लेकिन उन्होंने लोगों की उम्र ये 18 से 25 साल तक होती है.
Good luck. Name's telling me it's time to go. I'm pushing my luck here.
I think that suicide bombing and the use of IEDs, improvised explosive devices, that's the two most effective weapons now available with militants in this part of the world. The young people who agree to become suicide bombers, I think their numbers are really big. They can even afford to send bombers to attack insignificant targets. They're all willing to die. I remember one of the Afghan Taliban commanders, he claimed once that he had about 5,000 suicide bombers. The way they recruit people, the way they brainwash them, that is very effective. In fact, I remember once receiving a phone call from Qari Hussain, the master trainer of suicide bombers.
Telling you that
So he said,
you
I
can
can turn the young man into a suicide bomber in half an hour.
in half an hour.
And I said, how come? He said,
I can
it's very easy because there is so much anger among Muslims against America, against the allies of the Western countries, like the Pakistani state, Pakistani army. He said, our villages have been attacked, our women and children have been killed. So we can very easily motivate these families to supply us fighters and suicide bombers. And he then told me that you are an old man, but if you sit with me for half an hour, I can turn you into a suicide bomber. So he's so confident of what he's doing.
Taliban puts out videos like this. They used to be available in shops around Peshawar. When I went to buy them, all I could find was Bollywood and pornography. So I got my local cameraman to put out some feelers, and a militant ended up delivering a flash drive to my hotel that was full of these videos glorifying suicide bombers and successful missions and executions. As if dealing with the Taliban, widespread fundamentalism, and suicide bombers wasn't enough for Pakistan. In July 2010,
terrible monsoons hit the country, and 20% of it ended up underwater. In a matter of months, more than 20 million people got fucked by floods of biblical proportions. The water cut a swath through the country, from the very top to the very bottom.
Our politicians and our government heads, they say, due to this flood, the Pakistan go back 40 years.
Big food in the house here.
Ați dar nu vă ce chine de gen. Să le zananăm tu este sar marață. Nu că preve să nu păi să vestele, nu e ce. Ar și era nu ori, să că 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 preve ore, dar nu ore, eu și ana de la pe. Să le oi ora ca îmi pare că ce le da muri.
This is the aftermath of the floods. It's total devastation. There's nothing left. They've had no aid. They have no money. No one's helping them. They're trying to pick up the pieces of their lives, pick up these bricks, rebuild their homes. You know, they literally have nothing. To get a better sense of how the government was responding to the floods, I arranged to meet with the bureau chief of the Daily Times of Peshawar, Iqbal Khattak.
There is nothing happening as far as reconstruction is concerned. Money is not coming. If you are not honoring the pledges you made with the people of Peshawar, then the element of confidence in the military or the government will go away. And that will lead to a vacuum, which is likely to be filled again by the military.
जो मैंने सुना है कि तालिबान आते हैं और मदद करते हैं लोगों को ये और वो यहाँ आए हैं अच्छा और वो क्या करते हैं
उसने तो ये घर भी ताने की
अच्छा उन्होंने ये बनाया
उसने भी कर दिया किया उसने भी कर दिया ये घर सारे थोड़ा थोड़ा काम किए ये पर्दा भी उसने बनवाए ये भी बनवाए उधर भी दारों को काम किए
So all these homes around me have been rebuilt by the Taliban. आपका ख्याल क्या है तालिबान के बारे में?
हमारा ख्याल तो यही है कि हमारे इन लोगों ने हमारे साथ अच्छे किए इंशाल्लाह इसको अच्छा सलूक मिलेगा इसको जो जरूरत थी वैसे लाके काम साझेदार है क्योंकि थोड़ा बहुत किया मगर इन्होंने हमारा बहुत मदद की
So where the government fails, Taliban is stepping in and helping the rebuilding process, thereby engendering goodwill and winning the hearts and minds of these people. How many other towns are there like this?
So many.
So many. And it's all the same story.
The same story.
The U.S. government's response to the floods was to donate about $150 million in aid, which is great, but it's nothing compared to what the U.S. is spending on fighting the Taliban in Afghanistan, about $165 million every day. Part of that money is spent on remote-controlled Predator drone planes used to bomb militants not just inside of Afghanistan, but also inside of Pakistan. The drone plane attacks pissed off not only the Taliban and Al-Qaeda, but everyone, from civilians to the government. They often miss their targets, killing innocent people. They're a blatant violation of the nation's sovereignty. In 2008, Iqbal Khattak met with the Taliban commander, Baitullah Masood, who explained to him the effects of the American drone attacks.
So I asked him, okay, you can fight the American ground forces, but what about the air superiority or the drone technology? So his answer was that if I campaign for 3 months to win hearts and minds of the local population, I may get some 50 or 60 people over to my side. But a single drone attack brings me the whole village to my side. So that I think the drone attacks in the tribal areas of Pakistan may be providing the Americans with short-term gains, but the long-term losses are far, far bigger than the short-term gains. You are radicalizing the whole area.
I've been in Peshawar for a couple of days, and I'm just trying to wrap my brain around everything that's going on here. There's so many groups and factions and splinter groups within the Taliban itself. There's probably 30 militant groups under the Tehrik-e-Taliban umbrella organization. Then there's Al-Qaeda. We are just driving into a neighborhood called University Town. It is where Osama bin Laden used to live, and it's where he started Al-Qaeda. It's the birthplace of Al-Qaeda. And from here, we're going to go
meet with the Jamaat-e-Islami, who are a very established conservative Islamic movement, and they are Al-Qaeda friendly.
इन मसाइल हमारे पास जो मैसेज है कि हमें जो है ये जो हालात यहाँ पे मिलिटेंसी जो है इसका महर्रिक तालिबान नहीं है, इसका महर्रिक अल-कायदा नहीं है, इसका असल महर्रिक जो है वेस्ट की पॉलिसियां हैं। हम अमेरिका का जो घिनौना चेहरा है दुनिया के सामने वाजे करना चाहते हैं कि अमेरिका जो है वो क्राइम्स कर रहा है, वो लोगों को कत्ल कर रहा है, उसने हम पर बारूद बरसाया है, उसने पर आग बरसाई है, हमारे लाखों बच्चों को शहीद किया है, हमारे लाखों बच्चों को यतीम किया है। ये जो कितना बिलियन डॉलर्स, 100 और 1000 बिलियन डॉलर्स वो इस पर खर्च कर रहे हैं, ये अपने शहरियों की फलाह बहबूद पे इसको खर्च करें, दुनिया ह्यूमैनिटी इंसानियत की फलाह बहबूद के लिए खर्च करें। तो ये इन्होंने रिपोर्ट है कि 1000 बिलियन डॉलर सालाना खर्च कर रहे हैं अफगानिस्तान की जंग पर। तो अगर ये 1000 बिलियन डॉलर जो है ये खर्च होता है सोसाइटी को अपग्रेडेशन पर, सोसाइटी को एनहांस करने पर, कितना फायदा होगा। अमेरिका ने तो 9 साल यहाँ पे खून बहाया है अफगानिस्तान, 10 साल, लेकिन अमेरिका को कोई कामयाबी तो नहीं मिली है। इस रीजन में ये नेचर ऑफ रीजन, ये नेचर है इस रीजन का कि हम गुलामी कबूल नहीं करते। हम लड़ेंगे 10 साल नहीं, 20 साल नहीं, 50 साल, 100 साल लड़ेंगे अपनी ईमान और अपनी आजादी की। हमारे से दोस्ती करनी चाहिए, हमें डिक्टेट नहीं करना चाहिए। तो हम समझते हैं कि अमेरिका को, वेस्ट को ये तरीके वारदात के तब्दील कर देनी चाहिए।
The more people I interviewed, the clearer it became. The Taliban and Al-Qaeda in Pakistan have abandoned the holier pursuit of imposing strict Islamic law in the region. For now, they're simply young, pissed off, and vengeful beyond belief.
You need religion to motivate people. You know, Sharia, Islamic law, jihad, these slogans are very handy, very effective. But I think that the suicide bombings, even the attacks against the security forces, the police, the Pakistani state, the ruling party politician, it's an act of revenge. It's just plain revenge. There would be people who would be radicalized because of the policies of the state, because of its alliance with the US, because of American policies in the region. That's why even if there's a solution, you know, in Pakistan, I don't think the problem will end, because there's a fallout on Pakistan of whatever is happening in Afghanistan.
So after 9 years, $370 billion spent fighting against the Taliban in Afghanistan, the US still seems to be pretty far off from accomplishing much besides pissing off the entire region. And all this is inspiring a whole new generation of militants and suicide bombers in Pakistan, a country that has been considered for years to be a key ally in the war on terror. So it seems to me they've got a bigger problem now.
We're here in Lahore, Pakistan, in the old city. I'm here visiting family. It's been about 3 years since I was in the country, and in that time, the country has gone through insane amounts of change. It's really full of deep contradictions. On the one hand, you've got this progressive set of the population. They're organizing fashion weeks, they're partying, and you've got this liberal media explosion happening in this country. And they're operating uncensored by the government.
Liberal.
On the other side, you've got the Taliban. They've been infiltrating the entire country, attacking police stations and government buildings in a recent wave of violence. It's now escalated to a full-fledged battle with the Pakistani army fighting the Taliban in the tribal areas near the Afghan border. We traveled to this area 3 years ago when we wanted to visit a massive illegal arms market believed to be a source of weapons for the Taliban. It's been called the most dangerous place in the world, and is now basically closed outside of journalists. So I asked Imam to call our buddy. He was the chief secretary of the Northwest Frontier Province of Pakistan. With his help, we got our own private militia, and they made sure we wouldn't get kidnapped and killed.
If anybody come to my side, I will definitely kill him.
Naim, who's our host, is part of the Afridi tribe. He was born and raised there, now works as a protocol officer for the government. He put it together for us. He got us through, dealt with a huge amount of bureaucracy, and got the militia to cover us as we went through the market.
Is this loaded?
Yes, this is loaded, but they locked.
They locked it. Where's the lock?
This is the gate of Khyber Pass, and from here the Khyber Pass is started.
It's the most historic pass in the history of the world. The Aryans came through. The Mongols came through. The British Army came through and got destroyed. Special place.
Special place for special people.
Thanks, buddy.
Aryans. British Army came through. Aryans, the British Army, and the Mongols. You killed them all and chopped their heads off. Play your bagpipe.
This is the house of
Play your
Mr. Yuda
bagpipe.
Afridi. He
Play your
was
bagpipe.
in jail on the
That's what he
narcotics
got. They know what
offense
they're
in USA. Now he is acquitted, and now he is living here freely.
He's the founder of the heroin trade.
Not the trade, basically the idea,
The concept.
the concept
Of what?
of heroin.
The concept of heroin. Fuck the idea. Concept. Fucking trade.
Very special. I will try my
The
best.
idea. Oh, God. Oh, shit. You lost your mob hat.
Upper Khyber went into
To the mountain.
That's where the arms market is. So when you were explaining to the officials what we
might
wanted
be
to do,
Yeah.
the old man started laughing when you said we wanted to shoot guns and maybe buy some guns.
Yeah.
I think he liked that
He
idea.
like
He liked that idea.
he was locked. He was locked.
He was locked.
Yeah. People of this area believe many sons and a lot of guns. This is the philosophy of the Dara peoples.
This is definitely the largest illegal arms market in the world. There's another one in Pakistan, it's not quite as big. The story is that during the 80s, the Soviet-Afghan war was happening. All the scrap metal from all the broken down tanks and guns that they would find, they would bring it back over and then replicate it with firearms.
They will show you how the gun is making, how the bullet is making, and then they show you the shooting area.
So in the whole town, they make 1,000 guns a day here, and they've been doing that for 70 years. That's a lot of guns. So this guy is making 9mm pistols with his bare hands. The guy who's making it is deaf. It's a Mauser, but it says made as China by Noriko.
This is the cartridge. He has no tongue. 3,050 rupees.
We're hearing lots of guns being shot around us, and they're just checking to make sure that the guns work. They're doing it with live ammo. What I'm wondering is, they shoot it up in the air, where do the bullets fall?
This one is one of the big and popular shop in this gun market.
Go gun shopping. Here's an Italian machine. This is like a Kalashnikov? Kalashnikov. It says it's a muzzleite. I think you could do some damage to this. Sniper rifle. So in 1857, the British gave the Afghanis 10,000 of these. I don't even know where to cut this thing. Where do you put the bullet in? It's cut. You put it in a musket. A musket, right? You put it in. Nazi gun. German. German. World War II. Nazi gun. Pure evil in my hand.
So now we are going to the shooting area. Yes, let's go.
Bullet. So, yeah. So we were wondering where they fall and they don't fall far from us. I'm gonna keep it.
Okay, let's keep it.
You gotta be kidding. This is the shooting area? We just had lunch downstairs.
Yes.
Alright, let's do this. I'm shooting the enemies in the hills. I've never done this before. It's a Kalashnikov. And I'm kind of nervous. I see my target. Yeah. Yeah. America thought that by sending in troops to Afghanistan, the Pakistani army into the tribal areas, they'd be able to squash the Taliban uprising. They were wrong. The people we saw live in caves. They work in insane conditions. They have no tongues. They make guns with their bare hands.
We're done. We succeeded in our mission. We came to Dun. We bought guns. We shot them. They're in the mob of Afghans. They do like this. If you come here, you got to make sure you look the part. And you got to have a guy like me to make it all happen. Then, if you snitch, Pakistan's in the bus. This, you take your second, talk to them. Then they spike it, even though it's
3 years ago, when we filled in there, after we left, the government basically shut it down. They shut it down to outsiders and journalists because the Pakistani army was in there fighting the Taliban. And right now, between the Pakistani army and the U.S. troops on the border, the Taliban inside the tribal areas, it's essentially a powder keg that's ready to flow. A military expert that we know, he described the situation as the wickedest problem you could possibly imagine. Take it.
So is that why your nickname was General Butt Naked?
Yes, because I was naked, because I fought naked.
A lot of people would drink or do drugs before fighting?
Yeah, most of our boys,
yeah,
we drain the blood from the innocent child and drink it before going to battle.
So you kill the child?
Yes.
And then you drink the blood?
Yeah.
I left it up on the chopper, I'm gonna eat it. Left in a chair up, hot. So what kind of war is this? World War II. It's World War II.
We here at Vice have been fascinated by Liberia for a long time. It's America's first and only foray into quasi-colonialism in Africa. It started as a back to Africa movement for freed slaves. And in fact, the Constitution was written in Washington. Monrovia, the capital city of Liberia, is actually named after President Monroe. And it became a state in the 1840s. So the freed slaves go back to Africa and promptly enslave the native Africans based on the plantation method they had learned in the U.S., which lasts for about 140 years until Samuel K. Doe, the first native African-born Liberian, was elected. But this doesn't last very long. Why? because an American-educated and some would say American-backed rebel leader named Charles Taylor and his buddy Prince Johnson came from America and overthrew him.
We are not a military group here. I'm not a soldier. What we seek to do is to destroy these military dictatorships around Africa. And that's that Charles Taylor about. If the civilians can throw out the army, wow, we are in trouble. Well, I love it. We will fight to the last man. I will get weapons from wherever I have to get it. If the Pentagon got some, please give me some.
Despite reports that the government wants talks with the rebels, the violence goes on.
The government and people of this country assure you that the armed forces will protect them and that the rebels will soon be eliminated.
Rebel forces stormed into the center of the Capitol today. They are now less than a mile from the executive mansion where President Samuel Doe has barricaded himself with about 500 soldiers.
In fact, Prince Johnson, who got to Doe before his buddy Charles, ended up torturing him, cutting him up, and is rumored to have eaten him while filming the whole thing. So Charles Taylor finally gets elected with a campaign slogan that reads, "He killed my ma, he killed my pa, but I'll still vote for him." And it works. He gets elected. But he's so corrupt that soon after, there's a bunch of warlords fighting for control over Liberia. The country devolves into civil war, and things go from bad to severely fucked up.
I know somebody who want to kill me. If I drop you, I will kill you.
But this is like a civil war on steroids. It's a post-apocalyptic Armageddon with child soldiers smoking heroin, cross-dressing cannibals, systematic rape. It's total hell on earth.
We're going to lose it. There's a music.
They call it the sound of death.
Yeah, but it's a sound of music to us.
Liberia's been in the news a lot lately because Charles Taylor is on trial at The Hague for war crimes. We wanted to know what happened to all the other warlords. So we contacted a Canadian journalist who lives in Liberia named Miles Esty, who's kind of a Kurtz-like character, tall, skinny, skeleton guy, who's had malaria more times than he's had hot dinners. And he said he could get us access to all these ex-warlords. So we said, great. We got on a plane and we flew to Liberia. When you first get to Monrovia, the first thing you think is it's really